Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 146th New Social Environment. I'm Emily, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a radical poetry reading curated by Vincent Katz and Anne Waldman. Every Wednesday leading up to the election, a guest curator or curators will invite a number of poets who they admire to the NSE to read political poetry. And today we are also thrilled to have poets Sherwin Batsui, Andrei Codrescu, Julie Patton, Patrick Pethybridge, Wayne Koestenbaum, and Laurie Anderson here with us today. We'd like to thank Dermot Company for supporting this week of the New Social Environment. You can learn more about them and the Rail's Hallway Hijack curatorial project with them through the links in the chat. The Brooklyn Rail acknowledges that we are on the unceded territory of the Lenni Lenape, Canarsie, Shinnecock, and Munsee peoples. We acknowledge the many indigenous nations with ties to this land, and we recognize that the Lenape still call Mannahatta home. The Brooklyn Rail stands in solidarity with the uprisings unfolding across the country following the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Nina Pop, David McAdie, James Scurlock, Jamel Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Rhea Milton, Dominique Remy Fells, and Toyin Salau, among countless others, and in response to generations of structural violence against Black communities. Black Lives Matter, and we will continue to support ongoing action in the struggle for racial justice. Before I introduce our curators, we'd like to begin with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And now to introduce today's curators. Vincent Katz is a poet and translator living in New York City, whose latest book of poems is Broadway for Paul. And Anne Waldman is the author most recently of Trickster Feminism, Sanctuary, co-translator of Songs for the Sons and Daughters of Buddha, recently out from Shambhala, as well as artistic director of the summer writing program at Naropa, and a member of the Rhizoma Collective in Mexico City. Anne and Vincent, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, everyone at the Rail, for this incredible series. What number did we say we're at? 146? Or you were at, I should say. That means the New Social Environment, the 146th event in that series, and also I think the 8th radical poetry reading in this new series within it. So yeah, thank you to Fong, to Sophia, to Nick, to Anselm, Charlie, and especially to Emily for putting this together. Lucia Hinojosa in the Brooklyn Rail in the September issue, wrote an article about Cecilia Vicuña, and she has a quote from Cecilia, which I'd like to read. Cecilia said, "A work of art about joy is never apolitical because it makes you feel the urgency of the present, the urgency of being alive, which is the urgency of the revolution." And I'd also like to read this directive, which was passed on to us from the man above. I mean, Fong Bui, of course. When Fong wrote to us about curating this reading, he said, quote, "We are poised to read political poems from the beginning of this country until now." So in the readings that you'll hear coming up, we've asked the readers to select a few poems or one or two poems from earlier writers that they feel have had an impact on them in the particularly political or realm or in the realm of radical thinking. And just to reiterate, the sequence for today's reading will be Laurie Anderson, Sherwin Bitsui, Andrei Cadrescu, Patrick Pethybridge, Wayne Koestenbaum, and Julie Patton. Just before I hand it over to Anne, I would like to say that we started organizing this reading some time ago, and now we're falling into this very particular political moment. There's less than 4 weeks until the elections. Of course, there's one election, which is the most important, but there are a lot of other elections too, senatorial races and others. So we feel the urgency of this moment, and we also feel honored to be able to have this opportunity to read radical poetry and all kinds of poetry, actually. So I'm just gonna make a plea for, I think there can be a lot of feeling of impotence at times like this, like, what can I do? So I'm just gonna say that 2 things you can do that actually are proven to be very effective are writing letters and writing postcards to specific campaigns. So votefwd.org and postcards to voters.org are both really great ways to have a direct impact on what's happening. And now I will turn it over to my co-host and mentor and dear friend, Anne.
Thank you so much, Vincent. And thank you to all the people joining us today. And I want to thank Fong, the Rail, Emily, Nick, all the people who've continued to make this possible. And I all hail the new social environment. So yes, this is an extraordinary moment. We're in moments we've been in, and I've been so concerned about our, this coupling of the human and the flow and the mechanic flow, and what distinguishes us as humans with consciousness from these electronic flows that are influencing so much of the fog that we're in. And that, this coupling calls into, this sort of, I question of how are we as these beings in this time, as these subjects stemming from a humanist tradition, where is all that? So that's what I've been thinking about. And I try to go out and look at the stars and also just keep doing the work, reading and writing. But I wanted to open everything with a few lines from Diane De Prima's Rant. Diane, I'm sure many of you are familiar with her work. Born in 1934, grew up in New York City, granddaughter of Italian anarchist parentage, and still alive and well and kicking. New book from City Lights and a new revolutionary poems. But this is from her Rant. You cannot write a single line without a cosmogony laid out before all eyes. There is no part of yourself you can separate out saying, this is memory, this is sensation, this is the work I care about, this is how I make a living. It is whole, it is a whole, is always was a whole. You do not make it so, there's nothing to integrate, you are a presence, you're an appendage of the work. The work stems from, hangs from the heaven you create. Every man, every woman carries a firmament inside, and the stars in it are not the stars in the sky. Without imagination, there is no memory. Without imagination, there is no sensation. Without imagination, there is no will, no desire. History is a living weapon in your hand, and you have imagined it. It is thus that you find out for yourself. History is the dream of what can be. It is the relation between things in a continuum of imagination. What you find out for yourself is what you select out of an infinite sea of possibility. No one can inhabit your world, yet it is not lonely. The ground of imagination is fearlessness. Discourse is videotape of a movie, of a shadow play, but the puppets are in your hand, your counters in a multi-dimensional chess, which is divination and strategy. The war that matters is the war against the imagination. All other wars are subsumed in it. The ultimate famine is the starvation of the imagination. It is death, to be sure, but the undead seek to inhabit someone else's world. The ultimate claustrophobia is the syllogism. The ultimate claustrophobia is it all adds up. Nothing adds up, and nothing stands in for anything else. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. Diane De Prima. So we're going to begin.
Oh, thank you, Anne and Vincent, for that opening. The first reader is Laurie Anderson. Laurie Anderson is an artist living in New York City. Her most recent project is a radio series, Party in the Bardo. And Laurie, yeah.
You got me? Okay. Hello, I'm so happy to be with all of you today. I'm going to read a few pages of Alice Oswalt Memorial, and I'm going to just read a little bit of her preface because it explains a little bit about where this book is going. This is a translation of the Iliad's atmosphere, not its story. Matthew Arnold and almost everyone ever since has praised the Iliad for its nobility, but ancient critics praised its energia, which means something like bright, unbearable reality. It's the word used when gods come to earth, not in disguise, but as themselves. This version, trying to retrieve the poem's energia, takes away its narrative, as you might lift the roof off a church in order to remember what you're worshiping. What's left is a bipolar poem made of similes and short biographies of soldiers, both of which derive, I think, from distinct poetic sources. The similes from pastoral lyric. You can tell this because their meter is sometimes compressed as if it originally formed part of a lyric poem. The biographies from the Greek tradition of lament poetry. So I'm just going to read a few pages from the middle of this book. And just so you know, sometimes stanzas just repeat. So I haven't gone off into another world, as they do repeat. Okay, so here's Alice Oswalt Memorial. I keep track of the time, okay. They keep asking him why? He gave away, groaning every secret in his body, and was still pleading for his head, when his head rolled onto the mud. Like the fly, the daredevil fly, being brushed away, but busying back, the lunatic fly who loves licking and will follow a man all day for a nip of his blood. Like the fly, the daredevil fly, being brushed away, but busying back, the lunatic fly who loves licking and will follow a man all day for a nip of his blood. Recently arrived and camping apart from everyone with weapons cleaned and laid down like cutlery. This is horrible. This is some kind of blood feast, and beside each man his horses, 12 anonymous Thracians were killed in their sleep before their ghosts had time to keep hold of their names. It was so sudden. The raw meat smell of their bodies woke up the dogs, and these were rich men. They had long, smooth hair, but Diomedes, red-faced, quietly, like a butcher, keeping up with his order, got rid of them. And the last one, Rhesus, was a king. He should never have come here, bringing over the water those huge white horses with their chains and painted cheek guards, extraordinary creatures, almost marble, but moving. Like wolves, always wanting something, thin shapes, always working the hills. When a shepherd lets his flocks wander and the weaklings bleat their fear, within seconds the wolves appear. Like wolves, always wanting something, thin shapes, always working the hills. When a shepherd lets his flock wander, and the weaklings bleat their fear, within seconds, wolves will appear. 2 more metal ornaments knocked down anonymous in their helmets, and when those iron heads opened, everyone whispered, listen. That was Essos and antifos. They used to be shepherds. They were hill people working out of reach of the world. Those were the two boys Achilles kidnapped among the wolves and buzzards of Mount Ida. They said it was wonderful to be tied in creepers and taken to the other side by that gypsy. They said he could talk to horses. They said his mother was a seal or mermaid, and he introduced them to Agamemnon, the great king of Mycenae, poor fools who came home as proud as astronauts and didn't want to farm anymore and went riding out to be killed by Agamemnon, like a boat, going into the foaming mouth of a wave in the body of the wind. Everything vanishes, and the sailors stared midair, like a boat, going into the foaming mouth of a wave. In the body of the wind, everything vanishes, and the sailors stare midair. Antimachus was bribed. This is well known. Antimachus was a friend of Paris, who put the case for war. He opened a door in the earth, and a whole generation entered, including his own sons, Pisander and Hippoclicus, two dazed teenagers trotting into battle on their father's expensive horses. And those horses, those colossal death muscles, ramped and flared, and the reins slipped from the boys' hands. "Please take us alive," they shouted. "Our father is Antimachus, a gentleman. He has the cost of us both in cash back at home. We could fetch it, but..." Agamemnon remembered their father was that sly old man who tried to murder Menelaus. Antimachus assured them he had acted in good faith, but their ghosts said nothing. Like close to the gray sea, the waiting rocks outstare the winds and the big waves running at them open-mouthed. Like close to the gray sea, the waiting rocks outstare the winds and the big waves running at them open-mouthed. Iphidamas, a big ambitious boy at the age of 18, at the age of restlessness, his family crippled him with love. They gave him a flute and told him to amuse himself in his grandfather's sheep-nibbled fields. That didn't work. They gave him a bride. Poor woman lying in her new name alone. She said even on his wedding night, he seemed to be wearing armor. He kept yawning and looking away, and by the next morning he'd vanished. Arrogant farmhand, fresh from the fields. He went straight for Agamemnon, aiming for the soft bit under the breastplate and leaning in, pushing all his violence, all his crazy impatience into the thrust. But he couldn't quite break through the belt metal against all that silver. The spear tip simply bent like lead, and he lost poor Iphidamas, now his only iron, sleeping his iron sleep, poor boy, who fought for Helen, for his parents' town, far from his wife. All that money wasted. 100 cattle he gave her, 1,000 sheep and goats. All that hard work, feeding them, wasted. Grief is black. It's made of earth. It gets into the cracks in the eyes. It lodges its lump in the throat. When a man sees his brother on the ground, he goes mad. He comes running out of nowhere, lashing without looking. And that was how Kun died. First, he wounded Agamemnon. Then he grabbed his brother's stiffened foot and tried to drag him home, shouting, "Help, for God's sake, this is Iphidamas, someone please help." But Agamemnon cut off his head, and that was that. 2 brothers killed on the same morning by the same man. That was their daylight here finished, and their long night shift in the underworld just beginning. From Alice Oswald, Memorial. It goes on and on. It's a really beautiful book. And to close, I'm going to read a short poem that I wrote a long time ago that was a song called "Oh Superman," and it's I'm not going to sing it. I'm just going to read the words. It's a prayer based on a song by Massenet called "Au souverain, au juge, au père." It's an invocation to justice. So in the English version, it goes, "Oh, Superman, oh, judge, oh, mom and dad, mom and dad, oh, Superman, oh, judge, oh, mom and dad, mom and dad. Hi, I'm not home right now, but if you want to leave a message, just start talking at the sound of the tone. Hello, this is your mother. Are you there? Are you coming home? Hello, is anybody home? Well, you don't know me, but I know you, and I've got a message to give to you. Here come the planes. So you better get ready to go. You can come as you are, but pay as you go. Pay as you go. And I said, okay, who is this really? And the voice said, this is the hand that takes. This is the hand that takes. This is the hand that takes. Here come the planes. They're American planes, made in America, smoking or non-smoking. And the voice said, neither snow nor rain nor gloom of night shall stay these couriers from their swift completion of their appointed rounds. Because when love is gone, there's always justice. And when justice is gone, there's always force. And when force is gone, there's always mom. Hi, mom. So hold me, mom, in your long arms. Hold me, mom, in your long arms, in your automatic arms, your electronic arms, in your arms. So hold me, mom, in your long arms, your petrochemical arms, your military arms, in your arms, in your electronic arms. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much, Laurie. That was so incredible to listen to and see. Thank you. The next reader is Sherwin Batsui. Sherwin Batsui is the author of 3 collections of poetry, Dissolve, Flood Song, and Shapeshift. And you should have the microphone now.
All right. First, an introduction in my language. My name is Sharon Batsui, and I'm from the Navajo Reservation. And since I was a young human, I was always told to introduce myself and my ancestors. So yate, she Sharon Batsui dashijina, bimpetwatni twadachini nashla, tlazalana basichin do kiani dashiche. My discussion is that nalhut I den ansla le baby ke ba gede nasha ade ishya ade e shike kedat da ade ayisia di hanegi but adon indilla. So thank you very much. I'm going to read a poem. I just basically said that I'm of the Bitterwater people and I'm born for the many goats. And these are my parents' land, my mother's clan, my father's clan, and they go, all the way root in time immemorial. And I'm going to read a poem by Laura Tohi, who is the Navajo Poet Laureate of the moment. And the poem is about the Navajo Long Walk a particular event, tragic event that took place in the mid 19th century when my ancestors were removed from our homelands by force at gunpoint. And I think Laura talks about most of it in this poem, so I'll let the poem speak for itself. But I see that as a pivotal moment, to be forced out of your land. And essentially it's a genocidal situation, because I think the original plan was to move us to Oklahoma or over to Arkansas. And if that would have happened, we'd have definitely just completely lost our culture. So here it goes. And this is a photo of the long walk. I asked that this be displayed as I read this. This photo is taken at Fort Sumner in eastern New Mexico. And a Navajo photographer told me that this is the first photo of Navajo people, and it's a photo of us in captivity. I don't know how true it is, but I think that's very true. Within Dinetra, the people's spirit remains strong. These words are for my people, the Dene, who endured colossal hardship and near death and continue to endure. In the people's memory are the stories, this we remember. One, they say a long time ago, in time immemorial. The stories say we emerged, the umbilical center of this sacred earth, into the glittering world. Smoothed by twin heroes, sons of white shell woman, who journeyed to find their father, and aided by spider women who taught them how not to fear the perilous journey. They say the sun, father to the twin heroes, gave them the knowledge to slay the monsters, so the world would be safe. We lived according to the teachings of the holy people, to dwell within the sacred mountains, Cisnajini rising to the east, Tzotzil rising to the south, Doko Aslid rising to the west, the Benza rising to the north. We raised our families, planted our corn, greeted the dawn with our prayers, and followed the path of corn pollen. Every day was a new beginning, in beauty, in beauty. 2. The ancestors predicted it would happen, that the wind would shift and bring light-colored men from across the big water, who would shatter our world. They would arrive wearing metal coats, riding strange, beautiful animals, would arrive in clothes that brushed the earth, carrying cross sticks to plunge into Dinetra, our homeland. In their zealous urge, they sought cities of gold. Later, we learned they came to take our land, our lives, our spirits. Did they not know we are all created from the same elements? Rain clouds for hair, fingernails formed from beautiful seashells. The rivers flow through our veins, our lifeline. From wind we came to life. With thunder voices we speak. We fought back to protect ourselves as we fought with other enemies. The world changed when the light-colored men brought their women. It was then we knew they meant to stay. They invented ways to justify what they wanted. Manifest destiny, assimilation, colonization. And most of all, they wanted the land. One day, a man wearing red clothes appeared, Kit Carson, sent by Washington. He brought many soldiers. They spoke with thundersticks. They tore into everything we loved, to burn our beautiful peach orchards, to slaughter our sheep in front of us, to starve us out from the Netra, to do unspeakable things to us, to wrench us from our land, What strange fruit is that dangles from the trees? We feared for our lives and hid among the rocks and shadows, gathering food and water when we could. 3. What is our crime? We wanted only to live as we had within our sacred mountains, seeking harmony, seeking long life in beauty, in beauty. Others had their death march, the trail of tears, Auschwitz, the door of no return in the house of slaves. We too had our death march forced on us. When the long walk began, we witnessed our women murdered and raped, our children and relatives swept away in the rushing currents of the Rio Grande River. We heard explosions that silenced mothers giving birth behind the rocks. We saw the newborn and the elderly left behind. We saw our warriors unable to defend us. And even now, the land we crossed still holds the memory of our people's tears, cries, and blood. Kit Carson marched us 300 miles away. In the distance, we saw our sacred mountains becoming smaller and smaller. We were torn from the land that held our birth stems. We were taken to the land that was not us. We were taken to the desolate place without trees or vegetation, where men picked out undigested corn from animal dung to eat, where young women were raped. We called this place Welde, this place of starvation, this place near death, this place of extreme hardship. 4. We returned to our land after 4 years, our spirits ragged and weary, and vowed that we would never be separated from the Netre, our earth. The earth is our strength. We have grown strong. We are the children of White Shell Woman. We are the people of the original clans she created. We are female warriors, male warriors, Manilito, Barbancito. We are the code talkers who used our language to help save America. We are Annie Wanika, who taught us to have faith in the white man's medicine. We are the sons and daughters of activists and other unsung heroes. When Indian men were the finest men there were, quote unquote. We are the hands that create fine turquoise and silver jewelry. We are the women who resisted relocation when the government came with papers and fences. We are teachers, cowboys, lawyers, musicians. We are medicine people, doctors, nurses, college professors. We are artists, soldiers, politicians, architects, farmers. We are sheep herders, engineers, singers, comedians. We are weavers of baskets and exquisite blankets. We are bus drivers, welders, ranchers, dishwashers. We are the people who offer prayers during the cycles of the day. We are Dene. In beauty, it was begun. In beauty, it continues. In beauty, in beauty, in beauty, in beauty. So I'll go ahead and go back to my work. But normally at the end of every Navajo prayer, we say Wajanasli, 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 Wajanasli. And normally that says, essentially says, beauty is restored, beauty is restored, beauty is restored, beauty is restored. So the poem was written in 4 parts, and it follows the the 4 cycles of Navajo philosophy. So I thought I'd read the whole thing. And I'll just read an excerpt from my latest poem, Dissolve. And this is the last section of Dissolve. And I think, sometimes poems are weird because sometimes I felt like it was much easier, not easier in a sense, but sometimes there's a distance between an image created in a poem, but when that image takes on a real life, it happens in real life, then it's rather disturbing. So I have an image of children in cages, which I wrote like maybe several years before that event happened. I hope we can think about them too. A chopping block's cobalt hum, mothing braids of summer lightning, lulls a hatchet's handle loose, then capsizes children, aiming their flint spines towards steering wheels thawing in house fires. Suckled by shadows suckling their feet, enrolled in a disappearing act. They hand-stitch starless skies to their temporary faces. Their scraping is a smear facing another smear. Their sky's blue veins are horses neighing through them. Their dream of lightning dreams. The blurring heaves blue as it breathes out sacks of black hair. Their faces mountaining a lake's closed book, glimpse smashed cairns, sealed in lizard scales. Their past lays bright eggs when silence lathers dragnets over their mother's words for refrigerator light, moon rock, escape. See how they shiver even when their arms are shined to a high gloss. And the dawn light reveals their stone teeth glinting inside a tree's whimpering. Shifting shape, they pinch shut the keyhole of hunger's toll booth. Then release chirping birds from their detachable wrists. We remember their footsteps moored in glass jars, but forget flattened huts spilling their scars over the renaming of past landslides. Their shouts flail from empty school chairs to blurry visions at closing time. The vowels of the starved hang over the sequel of them. They are what raven's claws would sound like when unzipped from fallen apples. Gathered in thirds of halves, they drain spotlights on police dogs barking at their floating cages. Forearms sliced with ladders, the climb downward climbs up to greet them. West of dying, they ask to sleep in each other's arms. Then unravel from buildings weaving upright where bayonets stab the sea for warmth. Their coiled shadows obsidian as they lace ribbons of cedar bark into black wind, then stretch gauze wrap over gates swelling open from razors glinting in their palms' heat. Their imagined tails bridled with spit-soaked ash, striate liquid light to where the dissection begins. Behind their mothers' maced skulls, they push lantern-lit compasses into unmapped seasons, wing wind with red skin. Their viscous tails thaw our tongues' coastlines when they strap dawn's first lint to a weather of creaking chairs, so black boots won't be captured on cameras, sniffing their bruised masks. Stained glass splinters in their creased mouths, their fists among mirrors growling inside other fists. Pixelating through sorrel skin, they silhouette teeth nailing thick mud to thin mud and sing our horses to sleep on. Their bark blankets to incubate light bulbs flickering in egg cartons. They inhaled the pond's shadow while kneeing our shoulders to roan scent. An overcast of them scraped from the water's footsteps, cinder the bull's damp chest. Absorbing liquid night through gilled feet, they cackle from sand dunes, silver teeth twitching in their beaks. Thank you. That's from Dissolve. So.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sherwin. That was
Thank you.
really powerful and beautiful to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Andrei Codrescu. Andrei Cadrescu, poet, was the target of 40,000 angry letters from NPR, from Ralph Reed's Silent Majority for suggesting that the rapture was a good thing. Andrei, I am passing you the mic.
Thank you. Actually, the letters were to NPR from Ralph Reed, who was mad because I thought the rapture was a good thing. I would like to note that on this day in 1955, Allen Ginsberg read Howl at the Sixth Gallery in San Francisco in 1955. Another pivotal moment. I'm going to read two poems by others and two poems of mine. The poems I'm going to read first are by Adrienne Rich and Bertolt Brecht. Adrienne Rich was born in Baltimore in 1929. She died in Santa Cruz in 2012. She is widely known as a feminist poet, a public poet. She is often taught in schools and widely quoted. But like all poets, she is often reduced to her anthological poems and the poems in the school books. And the poem I am going to read is different. It is about the difficulty of reconciling the personal with the political within the small but savage world of poetry, recognition, cliques, and prizes. Adrienne Rich belonged to the small circle of recognized poets in the mid-century that I, for one, didn't quite trust, though I certainly was on her side politically. Like Robert Bly, for instance, her cause was right, but her poetry was straight. In this poem entitled If Your Name Is on the List, she appears to actually sacrifice her love for another woman in order to join the majority that awards a prize to someone, probably a man. She does a little flip at the end to assure her friend and her readers that she still loves her, but was somehow compelled to act like the rest because she is a woman. It doesn't quite work, but it is a strong poem. It's called If Your Name is on the List. If your name is on the list of judges, you're one of them. Though you fought their hardening assumptions, went and stood alone at the window while they concurred, it wasn't enough to hold your singular minority opinion. You had to face the three bridges down the river, your old ambitions flamboyant in blood-stained mist. You had to carry off under arm and right up in perfect loneliness your soul-splitting descent. Yes, I know a soul can be partitioned like a country in all the new, inhere old judgments. Loyalties crumbling, send up sparks and smoke. We want to be part of the future, dragging in what pure futurity can't use. Suddenly, a narrow street, a little beach, a little century screams, don't let me go, don't let me die. Do you forget what we were to each other? The next poem is by Bertolt Brecht, who is an important political poet. We know him as a playwright, and he was born in 1988, a great decade for poets to be born. Tristan Tzara was born in 1886. Brecht is known to us, most of us, for his collaborator in the Three Penny Opera, and I've seen a lot of his plays, to Mother Courage, the Caucasian Chalk Circle, The Irresistible Rise of Arthur Louis. Brecht was also a brilliant critic, a Marxist theorist, and a great poet. He was the center of a bright group of European thinkers in pre-Nazi Germany, including the younger Walter Benjamin, who followed him around with a notebook. He escaped Hitler from the Nazis, came to the US, spent time in Hollywood, was surveilled by the FBI, dragged before the House of Un-American Activities Committee, and sent back to Europe. He died in East Germany. And he continues, of course, to be loved like all of us. And the poem I'm going to read is about fascism and books. It opens with a popular wartime ditty in the First World War. And I am marching with my own and my brother's foe. So I have lost my brother. I wove his winding sheet. I know now by this victory, I wrote my own defeat. The poem is called The Burning of the Books, and is from Swedenborger Gedichte. When the regime ordered that books with dangerous teachings should be publicly burnt, and everywhere oxen were forced to draw carts full of books to the funeral pyre, an old poet, one of the best, discovered with fury when he studied the list of the burned that his own books had been forgotten. He rushed to his writing table on wings of anger and wrote a letter to those in power. Do not treat me in this fashion. Burn it with a pen. Burn me. Don't leave me out. Have I not always taught truth in my books? And now you treat me like a liar. I order you, burn me. My own works here are from our freshly from our time. And one is called Intimate Questions of the COVID Age. Have you exhausted your store of social distraction? Honey, can you get more mayo? My wonk tank is empty. Are those people in porn exactly the same as before? Why are they so fucking lame? Why is that kid bawling? Does that mean he wishes he'd never been born? Is that hungry over the mask look the best thing you can manage from 6 feet? Have you exhausted the film industry? Have you read all my books? Have you run out of synonyms for doom? Are you sick of Zoom? Do you hear a heavenly choir filling 6 feet of unrequited desire? What should I watch? What are you reading? Are your children as weird as mine? Are they even mine? Who the fuck did I marry? Is that show still on TV? This poem is called Metaphors on Fire. There are no passive or reversible metaphors. You turn something into something else, it stays that way. I think of how we treat other lives, other species, other times. They were once metaphors, prototypes transformed by utility. A horse was an ant. A cigarette is a glass of milk, 1970 anthem. There is a lot of wisdom on television. It was once a newspaper blown by wind. This summer, the play of life and death, the daily search for food, were once a pigeon on my roof. The fight for survival is fun, violent, alcoholic. Once it was a love shop. Death is a ghost dog indigenous people kill for food. Responsible for our own economy, we are a small group of metaphors where everyone turns into everyone else, into whatever feeds the overt mood. I am so lucky to have this matter and time to have matter and the gang. In the horror dome, we poets soothe by moving the camera, now hyper close, now far. Mysteries multiply when we bring over friends to turn into cabbage rolls or spirits. The stock market keeps going up. Our wave of the statistically poor takes back the city from the tourists who live in the technicolor version of black and white childhoods, blissful under the rain umbrellas of ancient classrooms we made restaurants. Our inexhaustible menu, the drone of history bent to ideology, describes much of what we know is malleable inside the atomic novel of the metaphor. A rain of words in the taste bud of my soul, directing its affections and weakness to our metaphor palliatives, for a world of loss under attack by pronouns, but capable of love. Truth gets in the way, a vertical Berlin Wall in Brooklyn. Language, poverty, madness, change ungendered lump of memes to discontented restlessness. Progress, man said, then he was buried. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrei. That was wonderful to hear. I love the thread of burning from the Brecht poem to yours at the end. Our next reader is Patrick Pethybridge. Patrick Pethybridge is a young experimental poet living in Denver, Colorado. He is the founding editor of Visible Binary, a small literary magazine for poetry, short text, digital media, and other genres. And Patrick, I'm passing you the mic.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Vincent and Anne, and thank you everyone for attending this reading. It is an honor to be here today. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Poem to be Read from Right to Left by Marwa Hilal. She is an Egyptian-American poet living in New York City. And the poem is from her book Invasive Species, published in 2019 by Nightboat Books. And it's mainly about her experience with immigration and being seen as a foreigner or an alien, even while being a US citizen now. And also language barriers between Arabic and English. And that really stands out to me because I also identify as an Arab. So it's nice to see someone I can relate to in a way. Poem to be read from right to left. I learned my first language second. C, native, I am mistaken for everywhere I go. To sun and moon, like the letter lam. Sound like lamb, but think like fox. Reminds me of this recurring dream, being chased in a circle like duck, duck, goose. But there were no other children. I got tired of counting the number of English words it takes to capture one in another. The next poem I'm going to read is one I wrote in a paper that was sort of shaped like an accordion. And I did it with the idea of turning a bad poem written by a teenager into a good one. Anti-nightingale. The gray owl eviscerates the night wind with its rambunctious velocity. What is the velocity of a nightingale? Better yet, its color. Gray represents the devil's soul, one who would eviscerate. To be a nightingale isn't to slice the souls of Europe, but to sing for the continent and its myriads. The word ruiseñor can either mean nightingale or mockingbird, but which is worse to slay? The devil can slay both, though the owl will accuse him for slaughtering the bird with the name of its home, the night. The sun and moon determines the faith of the devil, but the moon alone determines the faith of the ruiseñor and the búho. For Europe, the nightingale upholds the night, the wilds, the continent's black metal winds. As you can see, Mr. President, to be against your nemeses, the nightingale, owl, mockingbird, and their emergent vortices of culture, is not only to be pro-human, it is also to be anti-nightingale and to hate their talisman credences. This one I wrote for a talent show, and it addresses my Cuban heritage. One of my, how do I put this? My grandmother is a Cuban exile, and her mother's family is called the Palomares, which really runs deep in my identity. If one of our family members is being stubborn, we say, "You're being Palomares." And that literally translates to pigeon houses in Spanish. And I include one stanza in Spanish that addresses that. Pigeon house. Among creeks, a creature flies ahead. This creature, the pigeon, the dove. There is a family of these pigeons. They live in their house. They write their verses in their pigeon chambers. Hay muchos palomares. Las palomas viven en la tierra de los arroyos y árboles hermosos que son fundamentales para escribir. Escribamos de la infancia. What is childhood for a pigeon or dove? A dove speaks the language of the wind and searches for books in the wind archive. To the imperial land, the dove sings a blazing music. No music is flammable. No music sets objects ablaze. Do you hear the music of a medieval armada? When pigeons rejoice for their history, there is an armada, not a medieval one, a natural one. An armada in which wind, streams, forests, and celestial bodies unite with their forces to compose the furniture of the pigeon house. This one I wrote inspired by the emoji releases of iOS 13. So I was mainly making a poem out of the emoji that I didn't recognize. Concourse of good and evil. We plead to be amused, but let the judge decide the anatomy of good and evil. Let them take a selfie. But let us spool yarn and thread to create the garden for the greens, the leafy greens. Let's set out on a voyage, ill-equipped, to the mountains where mosquitoes, lobsters, and llamas lurk. where peacocks, parrots, and swans shuffle and wander, no raccoons to badger us. Let us have lettuce bagels, the exoskeleton of mooncake, if not mooncake itself. Is the moon the color of salt? If so, let it shine the sports stadiums, the sun brighten the parks, and the twilight sky over the lacrosse fields, the artificial sun over the chessboards being the puzzle of daytime. Sometimes trains race too fast that a fire flames the rails and knocks the bricks off the walls, only to be fixed with a toolbox. That high-speed train is an evil spirit. Hurry, get out your Nazar amulet, your magnet, smithering it with your dynamite, then be sure to save its microbes on a petri dish, and a test tube if you please. Let us wander into the archivist's bathroom, where baskets of miscellany are stored, like teddy bears, envelopes, receipts, and an abacus. We may encounter nations of good and evil across the seas, upon the good and bad lands, but let us cherish love's eternal baggage claim. Then this last one is about how when you order a Lyft rideshare, when the driver arrives, they text you the name of your driver and the kind of car that they drive, asking to look for it. And these Lyft drivers are hip hop or indie rock artists from our past and our present. Your Lyft driver, Anna Brun, is here. Look for the soil-colored land snail. Your Lyft driver, Kendrick Lamar, is here. Look for the gray wild mallard. Your Lyft driver, Lana Del Rey, is here. Look for the green Venus flytrap. Your Lyft driver, Joni Mitchell, is here. Look for the transparent gust of wind carrying many leaves. Your Lyft driver, Frank Ocean, is here. Look for the bluish-gray evening tide. Warning! Your Lyft driver, Thelonious Monk, is here. Look for the cloud-colored and somewhat smooth sliding fall of snow and pebbles. Your Lyft driver, Bessie Smith, is here. Look for the chartreuse flower of a cactus. Your Lyft driver, George Michael, is here. Look for the brown and black and white chimera-like okapi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Those were really, really wonderful to hear. Our next reader is Wayne Koestenbaum, poet, critic, novelist, artist, performer. Wayne has published 20 books, including this year a collection of essays, Figure It Out. Wayne, I am passing the mic to you.
Okay, it's been passed. What a moving reading. I'm so grateful to be included in this bunch and on this somber but ecstatic and imaginative occasion. I'm going to read 3 poems by poets who are not me, and then 2 or 3 poems by me. The first poem is by Bob Kaufman, born in 1925, died in 1986. It's called Battle Report. 1,000 saxophones infiltrate the city, each with a man inside, hidden in ordinary cases labeled fragile. A fleet of trumpets drops their hooks inside at the outside. 10 waves of trombones approach the city under blue cover of late autumn's neoclassical clouds. 500 bassmen, all string feet tall, beating it back to the bass. 100 drummers, each a stick in each hand the delicate rumble of pianos moving in. The secret agent, an innocent bystander, drops a note in the whale box. 5 generals gathered in the gallery blowing plans. At last, the secret code is flashed. Now is the time. Now is the time. Attack. The sound of jazz. The city falls. As if to say, aesthetics can be a form of subversive power. Fingers crossed. Short, marvelous epigrammatic poem by Toy Derricott. It's called Grace Paley Reading. Finally, the audience gets restless and they send me to hunt for Grace. I find her backing out of the bathroom, bending over, wiping up her footprints as she goes with a little sheet of toilet paper, explaining, in some places, after the lady mops, the bosses come in to check on her. I just don't want them to think she didn't do her job. Leaving really open and wild and wide the question of what a poet's job is. And then a poem by the late Reginald Shepard, whom I was fortunate to meet long ago in his near youth in the late 80s or early 90s in Buffalo, of all places. This is called Tantalus in May, and it's about ambivalence. When I look down, I see the season's blinding flowers, the usual mesmerizing and repellent artifacts. A frat boy who turns too sharply from my stare, a cardinal capturing vision in a lilac bush on my walk home. I'm left to long, even for simple dangers. From the waist up, it's still winter. I left world behind a long time ago. Waist down, it's catching up. A woodpecker out my window is mining grubs from some nameless tree squirrels scramble over. When I turn back, it's gone. I hadn't realized this had gone so far. Everywhere I look, it's suddenly spring. No one asked if I would like to open drastically. Look up, it's gone. Everywhere fruits dangle, I can't taste. Their branches insurmountable, my tongue burnt by frost. White boys, white flowers, and foul-mouthed jays, days made of sky blue boredoms, and everything seen much too clearly. The utterance itself is adoration, kissing stolid air. I hate every lovely thing about them. Hate and love. Their inextricability not to be denied, always to be investigated. 3 poems of mine. The first is, I could call them sonnets, but they're way too bloated for that, but they do have sort of 14 lines each. They're from a new manuscript, whatever that means. This is called Beard, Smooth Skin. Beard, smooth skin foams into snub. 40 minutes squandered as horn libation for Kurt Kuros. Turned him lickety-split into sub-bottom by feigning pique at his tardiness. Darwinian survival reversibility of damaged mother in dream where I ascended to John Donne literacy inchwise on winter porch or summer kitchen. She, illusorily tranquil, stood by wood rail awaiting potato peeler father insurance selling to reach Jello islet isthmus in silver wedding cup aloft, a retroactive baraka. dreamt shrink novelists' white-black Danae jewelry nestled into offered breasts, indifferent yet hospitable, subject to fingerprint impress. Dreamt I fell asleep in a clawfoot tub, and you said my snores were audible in the hallway. Later, we attempted Asylum Hill, TB Retreat, Alpine Siddhartha Soul Loss, triangulated with early cinema The Seat, Bertoya Chair, if Mikas had love filmed it. Lithuania calls my cell phone, hangs up. Next day, I watch Reminiscences of a Journey to Lithuania. Next day, Mikas dies. I claim clairvoyant synchronicity, or a desire to be enfolded within mystic diary chain, lines filmed or scribed, each forgiven by duration's monad dram, teaspoon or millimeter parentheses clipping memory segment, isolating, then joining synapses, babushka Bolex, the never betrayed. Rethinking the 10 Commandments as I walk to work in the rain, especially honor thy, the honor ambiguous, a vanishing point piazza exercise in farsightedness. Disturbing juxtaposition in grocery magazine rack, Anne Frank commemorative issue plus dogs, why do we need them? Ask Anne, ask the no one. Murdered Gregory Batcock's handlebar mustache below horizon lines plaint. GB washing his ass in Riverside Park between efficiently sandwiched tricks. Another one of these compressed poems from the same sequence. This is called I Doctor Wanted. I Doctor Wanted at last my cock, combined with four-hand Mozart sonatas. His tall Norwegian wife, Kaftan, in bed with us for novelistic complexity. Chocolate chips, raisins, cashews in dish, daughtered up my 3 o'clock disappearance. Time to teach math to 9th graders, my outlaw bike ride hill, a milkshake homo reverie. Forehead coin angle legatoing me into world peace treaty dissolver or solver. Magnet dream told in St. Louis undoes how hinge folds kill you minus Samothrace appendage. Weathercock gaming his ass, I said, you're gorgeous to no inkling avail. Like kindling, tossing homo down grim hills, Ladalenia ant lip fissure. Treacle, damage me, then reverse the scar. Drop basted turkey on Kissinger foot. No peace in did they fuck speculation, cramming his memento mori pubes backward to canker Eden. Grail, come back, scar, no impediment, gummed, shame salami mispronounced, Samitstat lice poem. Tinkle the fairy arc rope, wizarding, stained, cruelty daughter, now regal, aged Cassandra. To cram him up, to celebrate him crammed, to revise the cramming, to call the cram cream. How redux can you make East Germany, ducky? I get plumbed by rose thorn, a Jekyll teething ring. And I will close with a very short poem, kind of written, finished this morning, begun a couple of years ago, but in our era of catastrophe. A sticky tale. A muscle queen wearing motley changed hotels. There's no you behind the sweet pea trellis. Orange grunt work on the meat rack among asses. Cries of tiger, tiger in the hinterland. Tragedy is random, but farce is a suppository. Talcum spread on the ogre's posterior. That's how filled with ennui she is. I want a map to this capitalist pastime called cut the cord. A limitless Mercutio dancing repetitively for Romeo, his damsel. The founder of the Mattachine Society hectored his own tedium, like Similac spilled a casein quorum on a quilt. They've gathered at the dance macabre, the whole fetid bunch, blathering on about terroir. Better than this unremunerative uproar called bare life. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Wayne. Those poems are amazing. Our next reader is Julie Patton. Julie Patton, an extremophile fluid across many artistic borders, creates sanctuary for migrating creatures and humans. She divides her life between one of the richest cities in the USA and the poorest. And Julie, I am passing you the mic if you are there. But maybe we will, Julie, if you're there, you have a notification maybe to activate your microphone.
Here I am.
Hey.
Margaret Walker, Alabama born. I'm in North Alabama, right across the street from the path of the Underground Railroad to Hope City, which was this city, Cleveland, Ohio, where I began navigating my way back and forth between New York City and North Alabama for my people, everywhere singing their slave songs, for my people by Margaret Walker. For my people, everywhere singing their slave songs, repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues. And jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people, lending their strength to the years. Colors upended, to the gone years, and the now years, and the maybe year. F. I dedicate this reading to Patricia Butts-Ezel, who passed yesterday. Around this time, my aunt and my godmother, the last of the Ezels of that generation, she is going where my papa went. And left his shoes back to for my people. And now years and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, birthing, pruning, patching, dragging along. Never gaining, reaping heart, never knowing and never understanding. For my playmates in the clay and sand of Alabama, backyards playing baptism and preaching and doctor and jail and jail and jail and jail and jail and jail and soldier and school and mama. Oh, look, somewhere in this drawer at a funeral. This is the room of death and near death. But she is still here, 99 years for my people. For my people, upended in a realm. For my people, my people, my people, dear horned people, and drawers and drawers and drawers of people, and playhouse and concert and store, and Miss Chumbi and Hair and Company. For the cramped, bewildered years we went to school to learn to know the reasons why and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when, in memory of bitter hours when we discovered we were Black and poor and small and different, and nobody wondered and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew up in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and dance, and sing and play and drink their wine, and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching. For my people, chased out by brand new buildings and endless noise, beep, 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 early in the morning. Lost, disinherited, and dispossessed, and happy people filling the cabarets and taverns and other people's pockets, needing bread and shoes and land and more land and money and something, all our own, for my people, for my mother, for my nieces, for me, for ships that sailed and didn't know where. For my people, walking blindly, spreading joy, losing time, being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when homeless, tied and shackled and tangled among ourselves by the unknown, unseen creatures who tower over us and omnisciently laugh. For my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the faces, all the Adams, all the Eves and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth, and let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth, and let a people loving freedom come to growth, and let a beauty full of healing, full of healing, full of healing. Strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood. Let the martial songs be written. Let the dirges disappear. Let a race of men now rise and take control. And take control. And take control. And take control and take it back, taking control, a beautiful of healing, strength of final cleansing, pulsing spirits, songs be written, let the dirges disappear, let a race of men now rise and take control. Woo! Now, I have a few minutes left to read something of my own. Can everyone hear the pages? I'm reading fast as I can. I'm not a Zoom girl. With me, you always get blurred. This is the poem about the letter D, I, B. I just realized something. I could have flipped the phone backwards. Oh, well. Mutter ABC, fuck it DDT. BC, therefore, love, peace, peace, pace, door, troubled doorway, angle, line on love, laying danger, radical windings, delta, delta, AK, delta, delta, freeze, dimensional ID. Freudian hang time, another please check friends at the front door is locked for my people, 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 not my people, 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 my birth, my people, my birth people, my spiritual people, my people, my people, my people, my people, my people. To be a discrepancy in Cleveland, that is me. Upside down, inside out. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you so much, Julie. That was so amazing to witness and hear. Next, we're going to go back to the curators today, Vincent and Anne.
Thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you all.
Thank you, Julie. That was incredible. Margaret Walker. It's this amazing poem, and you're a Gesamtkünstler. You've got the choreography, as somebody said, the filmography, and of course the music, and your cat.
Orange Kitty and Paul Van Kuren on guitar.
And yes, I'm sorry, say the name again of the guitarist.
Paul Van Kuren.
Oh yeah, beautiful guitar and voice. Thank you so
I'm sorry I'm so ragged with this machine. This is only my second time Zooming, and I have no idea what people see or experience, so I wouldn't make a great filmmaker in that sense, but thank you.
You got it down. Don't change anything. You've got the technique down perfectly. I want to look back at this. This is definitely going to be an iconic video. And thank you to the other readers. It's been such a great afternoon so far. I'm just going to keep things going here with, I'm going to read, and then Anne will read and make some closing remarks here for this fantastic group of readers we've had today. So I'm going to do 3 pieces by other writers that have a radical political nature and have affected me. The first one is actually a song lyric by David Crosby from the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young album Deja Vu from 1970, which was always seemed very political to me, and also kind of humorous. I mean, there's a wit involved, which I think has been woven through a lot of the readings today, and goes back to that quote that I read at the beginning by Cecilia Vicuña, a work of art, that is about joy is never apolitical. Almost cut my hair. Almost cut my hair. It happened just the other day. It was getting kind of long. I could have said it was in my way, but I didn't. And I wonder why. I feel like letting my freak flag fly. And I feel like I owe it to someone. Must be because I had the flu for Christmas and I'm not feeling up to par. It increases my paranoia, like looking in the mirror and seeing a police car. But I'm not giving in an inch to fear, because I've made my mind up this year. And I feel like I owe it to someone. When I finally get myself together, I'm gonna get down in that sunny southern weather. Find a place to sigh to laugh. Separate the wheat from the chaff. And I feel like I owe it to someone. To someone. To someone. The next piece is a short poem that I discovered in this anthology, incredible anthology, edited by Camille Dungy. Black Nature, 4 centuries of African-American nature poetry, which encompasses a lot. Some sirens going by out here in Chelsea. So this poem is written by James A. Emanuel, who died in 2013 at the age of 92. And he said that it took him 7 years to think about and 18 minutes to write, which I understand. I mean, he explained it in more detail. It's about Emmett Till, and I feel that this is the 65th anniversary of that horrible incident that we all know about, and disfiguration of that young boy and his mother's decision to have an open casket, which led to the photographs that everyone knows about. It had such an impact really in starting, or at least being part of the origins of the civil rights movement. But I feel not just the anniversary, but just the consciousness that we're experiencing in this moment is like his story continues to resonate. And there's a foundation that you can look up that does important things, and is actually still trying to bring the woman who made the claim against Emmett Till to justice. She's still alive. And this is Emmett Till by James A. Emanuel. I hear a whistling through the water. Little Emmett won't be still. He keeps floating around the darkness, edging through the silent chill. Tell me, please, that bedtime story of the fairy river boy who swims forever, deep in treasures, necklaced in a coral toy. And now I'd like to read a poem by Diane De Prima, going back to Diane, whose poem Anne read at the beginning of this event. This is from her Revolutionary Letters. Love that photograph of her. Such an important figure to us, to Anne, and just, I mean, among many other things, she was there at the founding of Naropa Institute, now university, with Chogyam Trungpa and Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, and others, and John Cage, soon to appear. Yeah, her story, her autobiography is an incredible, beautiful book. And these revolutionary letters were written mainly in the 60s and 70s, and then she continued actually up until quite recently, some from the 2000s in this book. I'm just going to read one. Actually, I'll read it from here. Revolutionary Letter number 39 by Diane De Prima. Let me tell you, sisters, that on May 30th, I went to one of our life festivals, dropped acid in Tompkins Square Park with my brothers and sisters, danced in the sun till the stars came out and the pigs drove around us in a circle where we stood touching each other and loving. Then I went home and made love like a flower, like two flowers opening to each other. We were the jewel and the lotus. Next morning, still high, wandered uptown to Natural History Museum, and there, in a room of Peruvian fauna, birds of paradise, I saw as a past, like the dinosaurs, saw birds pass from the earth and flowers, most trees and small creatures, chipmunks and rabbits and squirrels and delicate wildflowers, saw the earth bare and smooth, austerely plastic and efficient, men feeding hydroponically, working like ants, thought flatly, without regret. I have unlearned regret. What beautiful creatures used to live on the earth. And I'll close by reading 4 short poems from my book, Broadway for Paul, that was published in April of this year. A marvelous sky. I don't need to buy any records, but there is a record store. I don't want to play chess, but there are still chess shops. I don't really want to pay for anything right now. The sky is blue, the air is warm, and youth is the tenor. Most people are not excited by their lives, but there's something in the air that might give them a lift. The younger they are, the easier it will be. But there is youth enough for everyone today. A side street provides protected solitude. Suddenly, music is in my ears again. Music reaches body, brain, and heart simultaneously. The ones one wants to reach are reached by music. Alone. They need crowds around them. I like to walk and see others in twos, groups, or single. All face the river at end of day. Boats and lights, skates, bikes go flying past. 2 people understanding or people not understanding. Cities changing, building up. Music's changing, people too. They don't talk or think the same. But there's still desire and glee. Looking at the sea, I have today and tomorrow. I hear amplified voices, the sun shines, the arbor shades, and people talk. Actors write, writers act. It can be the same or not. And criticism can be praise, but love can only be love. Mysticism is obfuscation, she explains to anyone. The sea is salty, you taste your mouth and hurt feet. Now it is the sunset they have come to see, islands lying on the horizon. We have today and tomorrow. And this is the last one I'll read today. Moon and fire. I don't want to finish this book. Maybe if I don't, his life won't end, thinking magically to avert the ending. What is the work and what the life? Where may the twain meet? Where divide? People are asking that again. And now over to Anne, who will conclude our event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all. What an extraordinary reading. Just been so rich and various, and gone to so many, traveled to so many places. So yeah, I'm going to do a little run through of a few things by others and then conclude. So this is from Walt Whitman, kind of controversial figure now. We've had to put a lot of the modernists in the closet. So anyway, this is from Drum Taps. I'm not going to read the whole poem because I want to build up some other things. I'm having some stuff on my screen. Let me just see if I can get rid of that. Thank you. Okay, this is from The Wound Dresser. I wanted to find something from closer to the front lines, hospitals, charnel grounds that we've been experiencing all over the world during the pandemic. Okay, so a couple of verses from this. This is 1865. On I go, open doors of time, open hospital doors. The crushed head I dress, poor, crazed hand tear, not the bandage away. The neck of the cavalryman with the bullet through and through I examine. Hard the breathing rattles, quite glazed already the eye, yet life struggles hard. Come, sweet death, be persuaded, oh beautiful death, in mercy come quickly. From the stump of the arm, the amputated hand, I undo the clotted lint, remove the slough, wash off the matter and blood. Back on his pillow, the soldier bends with curved neck and side falling head. His eyes are closed, his face is pale. He dares not look on the bloody stump and yet has not yet looked on it. I dress a wound in the side, deep, deep. But a day or two more, foresee the frame all wasted and sinking in the yellow-blue countenance sea. I dress the perforated shoulder, the foot with the bullet wound, cleanse the one with a gnawing and putrid gangrene, so sickening, so offensive, while the attendant stands behind aside me, holding the tray and pail. I am faithful, I do not give out. The fractured thigh, the knee, the wound in the abdomen, these and more I dress with impassive hand, yet deep in my breast a fire, a burning flame. Thus in silence, in dreams, projections, returning, resuming, I thread my way through the hospitals. The hurt and wounded I pacify with soothing hand. I sit by the restless all the dark night. Some are so young, some suffer so much. I recall the experience sweet and sad. Many a soldier's loving arms about this neck have crossed and rested. Many a soldier's kiss dwells on these bearded lips. So as most of you know, he was working during the Civil War. He did a stint in the hospital in, I think for about a year, the hospital in Washington, DC. Drum Taps. Okay, and next, this is Langston Hughes from sort of homage to Ozzie Powell, who was one of the Scottsboro boys, did not die in this incident, but was affected, so lost a lot of his mental abilities. And of course, the Scottsboro boys trial was, I think, around 1931, and then he was going to be let out with others, and then because of an incident that's kind of recounted here did not get out until the 40s. A lot of suffering. Ballad of Ozzie Powell, Langston Hughes, born in 1902. Hughes, social activist, novelist, poet, born in Joplin, Mississippi, and one of the leaders of the Harlem Renaissance. Red is the Alabama road, Ozzie Powell. Redder now where your blood has flowed, Ozzie Powell. Strong are the bars and steel the gate, Ozzie Powell. The high sheriff's eyes are filled with hate, Ozzie Powell. The high sheriff shoots, and he shoots to kill black young Ozzie Powell. The law's a Klansman with an evil will, Ozzie Powell. 9 old men in Washington, Ozzie Powell, never saw the high sheriff's guns aimed at Ozzie Powell. 9 old men, so rich and wise, Ozzie Powell, they never saw the high sheriff's eyes, state of Ozzie Powell. But 9 black boys know full well, don't they, Ozzie Powell, what it is to live in hell, Ozzie Powell. The devil's a Kliegel with a evil will, Ozzie Powell, a white high sheriff who shoots to kill black young Ozzie Powell. And red is that Alabama road, Ozzie Powell, but redder now where your blood has flowed, Ozzie Powell. And I wanted to jump to the Korean War and read from a poem. It's a series called The Hardly War by Don Choi, and she's a Korean-American poet born in Seoul in 1962. And so just a passage from this longer poem. And woe are you. It was hardly war, the hardliest of wars. Hardly it occurred to me that this particular war was hardly a war because of kids, mere kids, these poor kids. The kids were hungry and we GIs fed them. We dusted them with DDT, hardly done. Rehabiting Korea, that is, it needs chemical fertilizer from the state's power to build things like a country. To the end, it was the hardliest of wars, made up of bubble gum, which GIs had to show the kids how to chew. In no circumstance whatever can we be made comfortable without art. They don't want everything lasting charity, and we are not giving it to them. We are just lending a hand until they can stand on their own 2 feet, a novel idea. That is why it occurred to me this particular war was hardly war, the hardliest of wars. It was often referred to as the invisible war. And then moving right along, there was something in here from the Beat book. This is a book I edited some years back, but it's got tons of protest work. So I want to jump to Miri Baraka from Wise 8, Mojo Hand, Lightning Hopkins. I don't think I have to say that much about Miri, born in 34 in Newark, incredible play, The Dutchman, brought a lot of fame at once. It won an Obie. And then when Malcolm X died in 65, he decided to give up his life for a while in the village and some of that community, and went up to Harlem and founded the Black Arts Theater, and a tireless cultural worker. And before he died, he said to me, don't let it all get buried. So that's part of the way we need to tithe our time as poets. Don't let it get buried, and speak these words. Okay, Wise 8. From the country to the city, we left where things were pretty to get away from the Klansmen and race freaks who hung with the slave master's cause, who could not believe in democracy, who could not believe in democracy, who would not let life be beautiful, who howled moon shadows screaming for the primitive, who climbed the trees for past centuries, hollering for caves and blood. From the country to the city, we left where things were pretty, got city life, got city bread, wanted rights and services. Get to that, we thought, when all the time it could have been better, when all the time it could have been better. Now could have been built could have been, progress could have been better, and all the great notes of peace, all the great notes of peace, all that could have been better. And then going to see how much time we have. Take another few minutes. For the death of 100 whales, this is Michael McClure, who recently passed. American GIs stationed in Iceland murdered 100 killer whales with machine guns, 1954. And the Hal reading was mentioned, and Michael McClure was at that reading in San Francisco those years ago, and 50s, hung and read this poem. Death of 100 whales, hung mid-sea like a boat mid-air. The liners boiled their pastures, the liners of flesh, the Arctic steamers, brains the size of a football, mouths the size of a door, the sleek wolves, mowers and reapers of sea kin, the giant tadpoles meet their algae, leapt like sheep or children shot from the sea's bore, turned and twisted. Goya! Flung blood and sperm, incense, gnashed at their tails and brothers, cursed Christ of mammals, snapped at the sun, ran for the sea's floor. Goya! Goya! Oh, Lawrence, no angels dance those bridges. Oh, gun, oh, bow, there are no churches in the waves, no holiness. Goya! Goya! No passages or crossings from the beast's wet shore. Michael McClure. And I think finally in this do a little bit of Pentagon exorcism, because I don't know if you're aware, under Trump, there's this huge $1.5 trillion with all this nuclear plans for all kinds of new hardware, boys with toys, the Space Force mission. Hopefully this can be reviewed. I mean, we've broken so many treaties, exited from the Paris Accord, undone every good thing that Obama was able to accomplish. So we've got to build it back. It's going to take a while. But because of the situation out here, which continues around Rocky Flats, still battles about property and soil, and plutonium still in the soil, and then recent history around, not in this direct area, but how the Shoshone land was used for terrible nuclear experiments and so on. So, you know, between climate and nuclear stuff, we've got to take the vow for 250,000 years, the half-life of plutonium. So a little bit from the Pentagon exorcism, and then I'll close. Okay. Pentagon exorcism, no taxation without representation. Over smog, shrouded metal noise, treeless cities, patrolled by radio fear with tear gas. Businessman, go spend your bright billions for this suffering. Pentagon wake from planet sleep, apokatastasis, spirit, spirit, dance, dance, spirit, spirit, dance. Transform Pentagon skeleton to maiden temple, oh phantom Guevara. Raksha, Raksha, Hum, Fatsvaha. Anger, control your self-feared chaos, suffocation, body death in capitals, caved with stone radar sentinels. Back, 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 central mind machine, Pentagon reverse consciousness, hallucination manifest, 1,000,000 Americas gaze out of man's spirit, naked pentacle, magnanimous reaction to signal Peking, isolate space beings. Okay. So this is I Remember, in honor of Joe Brainerd, and it's called I Remember Being Arrested. I remember being arrested at Rocky Flats nuclear weapons plant. What I was wearing, a red and white Hawaiian shirt, white straw hat with plaid ribbon, white pants with gentle crease down the front. I remember the guards in the back action suits. I remember thinking they are just boys. I remember the guards with their megaphones giving a countdown as we squatted on Rocky Flats property. You have 10 minutes to evacuate the premises. You have 9 minutes. You have 8 minutes, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and so on. I remember what a beautiful day it was, how it was passive. The mountains looked passive, and how They looked so majestic. I remember thinking all this could disappear. I remember thinking I was 6 years old when this place was built, how it cost something like $250 million, how the word trigger is a funny word, a name for a horse, for a gun, not a bomb. I remember thinking the word button was a funny word to use. I remember the 10-pound plutonium buttons extracted from fuel rods were shipped to Rocky Flats on trains. I remember tender buttons from Stein. I remember we meditated on the tracks and tried to stop the shipments of plutonium. I remember trying to sound intelligent when the microphone was shoved in my face and not just singing, "We shall overcome." I remember thinking it's hard to visualize plutonium, something that is invisible and doesn't exist in nature. I remembered that it comes from uranium. I remember trying to visualize bombarding uranium with neutrons. I remember trying to visualize the chart of elements as it hung on my high school wall while riding in the bus to the courthouse in Golden. I remember being with Alan in Chicago during the Chicago 7 trials. I remember thinking that I would demonstrate with him anywhere in the world. I remember being with Alan at a gay rights benefit in Aspen, how we were in the bathroom right before the reading and he needed to inject the needle with insulin into his arm. I remember his good cheer on the bus to be booked in Golden, also his gentle anger. I remember how I went in Xerox color paper with mantras on them to hand out at the demonstrations in Chicago. We went to the park. It was getting dark. I remember a lot of people had megaphones. I remember I started chanting, Om Mein Gring Kling Chamanda Ye Vajaya, into a microphone. I remember how we chanted mantras, and then we were chanting mantras, and then we were chanting mantras, and we would be chanting mantras now, and we will keep would be and will be and did, and we will keep chanting mantras the rest of our lives. I remember thinking as we rode the bus to Golden that it was a particular kind of bus reserved for prisoners or mental patients. I remember making a huge circle of human bodies for miles and miles around Rocky Flats. I remember when I was pregnant, I stayed home. I remember seeing the deformed calf born without hair at the stable where we would go horseback riding near Rocky Flats. I remember thinking I would go scatter some of Alan's ashes at Rocky Flats, and then I didn't act on that thought. I remember looking into my son's newborn face and wanting to save him from every possible hurt or damage. I remember thinking that the enemy may be invisible. I was in a rocking chair. I was holding him tightly. It was the middle of the night. And then finally, a little bit connect the dots. This is from a recent book called Sanctuary, and sort of started after going down to the border at El Paso and visiting, seeing some of what was going down there summer before last. So just jump in a few lines. What is the event horizon of Sagittarius A? Is it a black hole, an exotic object such as a naked singularity? What? We are raw, maybe raw for how do we behave when general relativity masks our desire? When we test our gravity, they will test whether these holes have no hair. Make physics break down. Robert Penrose introduced the cosmic censorship hypothesis that somehow physics censors the nakedness of singularities by always enshrouding them with a horizon. Black hole shadows appear nearly circular with size equal to perhaps 5 times the radius of the event horizon. I woke on the desert, massive hurt at the border, Texas. The eclipse was in South America. I knew it was radiating, stopping the world as the sun up there broke free. But the children were in cages. It was earthquake time in another zone. It was mountain time. Here, citizens along the Rio Grande sequestered behind their screens, but not happy. Warnings and denial and fear, oblivious to water rations. Oh, heat of the sun. Connect the dots! Connect the dots. Image in nation, dream rooms, the coming community, Candelaria's high capitals, Huichols higher up in the mischief of Bruja's chain of commands, so they make a person disappear. And now, nor between, nor ever Mueller report in a hard place voyage of dark realms. Protect the dots, protect the dots, connect the dots, connect the dots, protect the dots, connect the dots. Did Blue Tara come down from her perch and be Samboga Kaya double agent for all the melancholic babes? abstracted identity collapsing into sex scandal and silent. Oh, Kavanaugh, carve a knot, a horn in her hand, truth bell in the other. Oh, herring, daring do was paved with Mercury retrograde. Is this world, this democracy, a gentleman's agreement? Crossroads melting into bigger Kaya's encryption, crypts for an asking point, and hidden, and the tears before the crypts of friends who just stepped out for a walk. Jonas, Carol Lee, with porcelain hands, Jonas at rest, palms of tribute, they rise to wave, ever so steady now, waving, goodbye, goodbye, connect the dots, with a gesture, how they die. Oh, jurisdiction dictates how one dies within a city. Cover your ears, will we build the walls of Uruk? The villain dies without a friend on his lips. Latin word jinx comes from the Greek name of a wryneck bird associated with a gesture. But Draupadi, disrobed, was still begging for her modesty. The Russians have been charged. Hey, connect the dots. So I want to thank everyone for this, such a stimulating, generative reading. So great to go into these other worlds with all the different poets' voices who brought into this these rooms in our little sacred boxes. You're all like sacred idols in the inner temple. So I want to thank everyone for the work and thank the audience for joining us. And we just have to stay strong, bon courage. We have to just keep it going and do what you can wherever you are. We've got to get rid of some of this. So let's open up. Maybe we can have a little social chat before we close. It's a few minutes.
I want to thank all the poets. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Sherwin. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Andrei. And yeah, just do what you can in the next few weeks. Let's get some energy happening.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Vincent and Anne, for bringing everyone together today. This has been such an amazing reading and an awesome Zoom to be in. Thank you, Laurie, Sherwin, Andrei, Julie, Patrick, and Wayne. All of you had such amazing things to share, so thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who came out today. Please join us again tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the 6th installment of Common Ground, featuring Chicago photographer Tamika Lewis Johnson and architectural and community historian Lee Bay for a conversation on the cultural life of Chicago's South Side. And please join us next Wednesday for another radical poetry reading curated by Rail Poetry editors past and present, Anselm Berrigan and Monica Delatorre. Everyone now should have the ability to activate your microphone and say goodbye as you leave. Thank you all.
Wow, thank you so much, everyone. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very
Thank
moving.
you so much. That was just so beautiful.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Anne and Vincent.
Thank you for giving us power to go forward.
Julie, Patton. Julie, it was so great to see you inside your home. I love seeing inside your world, Julie. That was beautiful.
Andre.
Thank you so much.
Anne, it's so good to see you.
Was gentle.
Very, very heartening.
Hey, Bob.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, Bob.
Greetings from Oakland.
Okay.
Good to see everybody. Beautiful reading. Hey, Wayne. How you doing?
Good.
Oh, Andre.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Anne. How wonderful.
Andre. Thank you, Andre.
Oh, nice to meet you.
65 years since Alan read Howl.
Wow.
Wow. We should have a Howl reading.
Sweet.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Sherwin. Good to meet you and hear your poetry. Wonderful.
Good to meet you, Andrei.
People I'm not seeing in so long, like you, Sherwin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick. Also, Patrick is
beautiful.
You know, I've known since he's still only 16.
No, we've all Wow. What is?
He's an old soul.
And thank
And
you,
it's so
Julie.
beautiful to see.
Julie, thank you for singing. Thank you for
Yes.
intoning.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Thank you. Stay well.
You too.